Welcome, beautiful people, and thank you for joining us on Till the Wheels Fall Off, a podcast by two folk couple. I'm Matt.
And I'm Paige.
And we're here to inspire others, to bring you guys into our lives and tell you a little bit about our journey. Over 20 years together, we've learned a few things.
We're going to work toward being the best version of yourself possible. We're going to dig into building a positive mindset, discuss mental health, addiction recovery, improving fitness, building businesses, and insight into what it takes to navigate life today.
Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I am Matt.
I'm Paige.
We've got an amazing episode in store today, and I truly mean that.
You said that last week.
I say it a lot, but
we'll let you be the judge.
I'll mean it this time. It's different. Before we get there, I wanted to talk about a few things that we've got going on. We've got sweatshirts for sale at our website, twofo.com, twfo.com. They are running low on stock. I can see them over there. We've got still got a pretty good amount. So if you're interested, if it's cold where you are, or if you just like to snuggle up inside and keep your house super cold in the Southern Hemisphere, then get you one. They're so comfy. They're amazing. Our course is still out there as well. And we've never wanted to be pushy about anything like that we were doing. Like pushy. I don't want to be pushy about it. I want people to know it exists. But I have to say, we get a lot of comments and DMs and emails, and people are asking questions, and the answers to these questions, 99.9% of them are in the course. Yeah. They're in the course. It's a lot to take on. We very much understand that. It's huge. It's like taking a college class. It's comprehensive. There's a lot to it.
But this is your life.
This is your life, exactly. Yeah. Invest in your recovery. We also understand that finances aren't always the best in an addicted relationship, which is why we've got, for a limited time, a discount coupon that gets you 75% off the course using the code Wheelies75. That's Wheelies with an S, 75 at checkout. And we also have payment plans, so you can pay it out over the course of 3 months. Yep. Anything we can do to help and get you the help that you so need. Another thing, and this has occurred to me, I guess since we're in it every day, we forget it exists, but we have a free Facebook community.
Yeah, it's a support group.
It's a support group called Twofo Community. You can find that by clicking the link in any of our social media bios or profiles there. Our link tree will have that on there, as well as the course. We've also got guides for sale on topics ranging from, I think they're just narcissism right now, aren't they?
Yeah, and then there's one on how to manage triggers.
Some really awesome guides available as well over at independentlystrong.com.
Yes.
Which I think you can get those there through our website. Can't
No.
you? It's only on independentlystrong.com.
Yes.
That's an exclusive to Independently Strong.
Yes.
Okay. I think that concludes this message.
It's great.
Okay.
Now, on to the actual episode.
Let's get it going.
All right. So last week we it was a part 1 of how I lost myself in your addiction. And this one is going to be how I found myself again. Matt's been sober for almost 11 years now.
Yeah.
And that is right?
Yeah, it'll be 11 in April.
Okay. So we typically meet people where they're at, but today we're going to meet me where I'm at.
You're going to reintroduce yourself.
Yes. So it's a totally different version of what you get throughout the other podcasts, would you say?
For sure. Like, I know you better than I think anyone on the planet does.
Yeah, that's true.
And January is a year ago is the first time that you really came out and told your story. Like,
yes.
In my mind, this is when Tufo started.
Yeah.
It was a year ago.
Yeah.
So this is cool. It's kind of like on the anniversary or around it anyway. You're going to reintroduce yourself in a way. I think you're much more comfortable talking about this stuff now. Mm-hmm. And you've really nailed down what you've really done over the years that made an impact in the person that you are today. Yeah. You crack me up in some ways.
Why is this?
Because this is what I love about you.
Where are we going with this?
I call Paige sneaky hot.
Okay, yeah. You've always said that.
She is sneaky hot, man. Mm-hmm. And sneaky hot is the best kind of hot. If you're going to be hot, be sneaky hot.
Explain. What does that mean?
You're like a sleeper. I don't mean that you aren't just beautiful. Like anyone can look at you and be like, wow, she's really good looking. But you have to get to know you and you have to get comfortable before you're really you. Mm-hmm. And I think that this episode encompasses like what I get to see
Yeah.
and what I live with and the person that I really know. So I'm looking forward to everyone else getting to know that same person.
And it kind of goes along with your personality because you like sleeper cars too.
I do.
And you taught me to appreciate sleeper cars. For those who don't know what sleeper cars are, they're cars that don't look fast, but they are fast as hell.
It's cool. It's what's inside that matters.
Yes. I used to have an awesome sleeper car.
You did.
I loved it.
So
I
cool.
missed it so much. And parenting changed it for me. Anyway. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into this. How did I find myself again? Well, first of all, it's a process for sure. It's not like I woke up one day and said, oh my gosh, I totally lost myself and I don't even know where to begin. You know, it's like you just kind of go, it's progressive. You go down this whole hole of just feeling trapped and scared and not knowing who you are. And then all of a sudden you're just like, enough is enough. It doesn't really happen that way. It kind of, it doesn't click. It takes a little time. But also, you telling me to get my shit together was definitely part of the process.
We always go here. We're always going back here.
I'm still grateful for it, and I will always be grateful for it. But I did get to a point where I said, enough is enough. So I began therapy. I decided to do hard work every single day. I found somebody who validated me instead of pulling out all of my character defects, which is what I got at home. We discussed how I wasn't totally crazy, learned how to manage my emotions and panic disorder. That's what I did in therapy. It wasn't just like totally going down my character defects.
When you say you found someone to validate you, you don't mean me. You're talking about
because
your therapist.
you were not validating me at the time.
I didn't even know what that meant.
At all, no. And this was, you were at least 5 to 6 years sober at this point, and he still wasn't validating me in our marriage.
Right.
And I'll talk about validation here in a little bit. But I learned that a lot of the things that my husband had learned in his recovery program wasn't all accurate. Like acceptance to him meant accepting everything and just going with the flow instead of solving problems. It was like another way to shove the problems under the rug.
Yeah. Acceptance was the answer, was like a mantra that came from the program that I worked. And actually, I literally have it tattooed on my ribs.
Yes.
Acceptance is the answer. And for me, what that meant was that I cannot control the world. I need to focus on me and my attitudes if I want to be happy today, and acceptance. But I took it too far.
Yes.
And I think what you're referring to is the acceptance of behavior from other people that is harmful to me and those I love, and being okay with it because that's who they are. I think you can take acceptance too far and run with it and then find yourself without any problems at all, but you still have problems.
Yes, it can keep you in denial.
Right.
And keep
You've
you
just chosen
tolerating
to accept
shit.
them. I think you got there a lot faster than I did through this work that you're discussing, which is, there's a difference there, pal.
Right.
And we used to, go with this over this all the time. Like, no, you don't understand me. No, you don't understand me.
And I never put my guard down with that because I never felt like it was accurate. I'm like, dude, no, this is patterns of behavior that is happening over and over again that needs to be addressed.
Yep.
And then I learned, one day at a time. That was a really big quote in our house. And I learned that it won't solve my problems. Like I can't just let my problems go and everything works out. One day at a time works in some situations, like if you're leaving a certain situation and you're like, I don't have all my ducks in a row, I don't have everything in order. I do have to technically take this one day at a time and I will survive. But every single day saying that, oh, I have a problem. Well, just take it one day at a time. Everything will be okay. I had a problem with that. It irked me. And it was kind of my gut telling me that something is still not right with this. So in therapy, I learned to trust my gut more.
Yeah, because you were validated.
Yeah.
Which we will get to later.
Yes. So I learned to trust my gut. I learned to set boundaries. I removed people from my life who I outgrew. I learned to say no. I learned about my cognitive distortions and how I minimized a lot of things in our life while everyone around me told me I was catastrophizing everything, which is what you did in our relationship.
Yeah.
It was like, no, that's not a big deal. You're being too sensitive, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But I started to minimize my problems when the reality was, no, these are actually problems. These are big problems that need to be resolved. I learned to wake the fuck up and stop making excuses for behaviors I do not tolerate.
Heck yeah, man. I don't want to cut you off because you're on a roll.
I am on a roll.
I've always admired, like if a crowd is running one way, you've always been the person that had no problem going the other direction because that's what you believe was right.
Yes.
You've
that's
never
true.
backed down on that.
Yeah.
And like ultimately, I had to do a lot of work and reflection to get sober that you weren't there for, but I can say with full transparency and honesty that you inspired me, and I don't think I'd be sitting here today if not for that quality about you.
Thanks.
We've talked about this, and you keep saying, no. Like, other people have even told you this, like people that know us really well.
I know, but it's hard because you didn't say that for a long time.
Well, get used to it.
That sounded so phony. You're like, I just don't know what the fuck to say here.
No, it was semi-sarcastic. Like, get used to it. I mean, really, like, it's true. It's true. Like, you've always been so strong on your resolve and your ability to see right from wrong and know in your core what was right, what wasn't, what you would tolerate and what you wouldn't tolerate. And I credit that for the person I am today.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. But, yeah, you know, I credit you. And we can sit here and go back and forth all day, but.
Okay, I'm moving on.
Okay.
So in my therapy sessions, there were times that I would come home and I wouldn't talk to you about them because there were points where you would say that what I was learning was bullshit. You tried to spin it around and say that this therapist isn't for you, or she doesn't know what she's talking about, or what she is talking about. Sometimes they just talk about something that they're like well versed in, and that's just what they're going to focus on, and they don't look at the big picture. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's cringy, but I remember it.
Yes, you did this. And it's because you had to look within yourself, and you didn't really want to kind of do that because you knew it was going to affect you.
Yeah, they say like if you spot it, you got it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm aware of this now, and I should have been aware at the time, but I wasn't. Anytime someone's telling you something and it stings especially deep,
yeah,
you've uncovered something about yourself that you don't want to face. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to go down that place to figure out what that's about, why that hurt the way it did. It's much easier to lash back out and get defensive than it is to listen to somebody and accept some of these things and begin to ask questions in your own mind about, could this be true?
Yeah.
Is this actually happening?
Right.
Is this how it really is?
Right.
But it's tough in the moment. And if you're like, I was a very abusive, narcissistic type person, you would bring these types of solutions. And this is sober, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
This is sober.
This was years sober.
So like,
and working a program.
We can have a whole other episode on why just removing the substance doesn't mean much.
Right. It's like 5% the
5%
problem.
5% of the problem.
That's what I like to say.
But yeah, I remember this. Like, no, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And for the record, like, I absolutely love your therapist. I love your therapist. Now,
yeah.
Back then, she was a threat to what I thought I knew and understood about the world. And she was making me question my own thoughts and feelings about the world and my reality.
But here's the thing about me. I didn't give a shit.
You never canceled the appointment. You never said, I'm sorry.
Nope.
You were just like,
I was like,
tough.
okay.
That's tough.
I was like, tough that you feel that way. I'm going to continue learning. I'm going to continue educating myself. I'm going to continue building up my self-esteem and figuring out what the hell is going on with or without your okay.
Yeah.
I didn't care
Nope.
because, and I think that this is why, because I went to somebody who was validating me, who was telling me that I hear you. You know, validation doesn't necessarily mean condoning. It doesn't mean that it's agreeable. Validating is just literally saying, I hear you and I understand you. And that's what I got. And whenever that happens, we're able to really like, oh, shit, you know, I can make my own decisions. I can do things for myself. So I'm just saying that another part about you not liking what I was going through is that you didn't understand my highly sensitiveness at all. You didn't understand me being an HSP.
No, I didn't. I felt like you were, this sounds horrible to say this out loud, but
no, it's okay.
Our podcast, like our core value is authenticity and just being genuine. I felt like you would make big deals of things that weren't necessarily like great. Like, yeah, sure, these are problems, but we just need to move on.
Yeah.
Like, that's not that big of a deal. Like everyone's got that kind of crap. And you can sort of rationalize it that way, you know? Mm-hmm. But your freaking instincts were always on the money, like always. Mm-hmm. And I think that being a highly sensitive person, I mean, you literally have more mirror neurons than I do in my brain. Like, it is a genetic marker. It's a superpower in some ways.
Yes, it is.
It's also a curse in some ways.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, I didn't know what that even was back then.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, you're the type of person who would tell me to just deal with it, you know, toughen up, be stronger or whatnot. And it's like, no, man, that's making it worse. That's making it a bigger deal because I'm feeling like I need to correct my feelings.
I would sit there and try to coach you on a different perspective to take.
Yeah.
I just didn't know any better.
Right. And
doesn't excuse it.
You've
just
come a long
ignorant
way.
on
Like
it.
you understand that and some days you do know that I am a pain in the ass. Being a highly sensitive person, I am a pain in the ass. I do make big deals out of some things sometimes, but I'm also like, I stand my ground on it. I don't say like, okay, I just need to fix that or correct it or, shift my perspective. No, I'm going to be a pain in the ass. That's who I am. And it's okay.
You're not a pain in the ass. Okay. It's not like you're walking around here like I was, like stomping on the world and everyone in your way saying, this is what I need today. This is what I want. I'm going to be controlling.
Yeah.
You're just an incredibly feeling person.
Yes. I just feel a lot.
And
I do.
For instance, like if I don't respond to a text right away, this is just an example. I don't think you really ever do this, but someone who's highly sensitive, if you respond to it, if you don't respond to a text in a timely manner, or you let's say they invite you somewhere and then you say, I have plans already, they're going to feel like that's because of them. Like, what did I do to cause that? And it sounds sort of like codependency, but it's not. Like, this is an actual thing. There's a book called The Highly Sensitive Person.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot.
Dr. Elaine Aron.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible book. And I don't remember the percentages. Do you remember
it's
the
like
percentages?
20%, I believe.
20%?
I believe.
Yeah, roughly 20% of the population has this.
I think.
And it's genetic. So if you've got it, maybe one of your kids has it, one of your parents has it. And then once you read the book, you're going to go, oh my God.
Right.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. But also, like, if I get triggered by something because I am highly sensitive, it's not everyone else's responsibility to fix my triggers. I know that that's something within me, and that's something that I have to deal with. So I don't go out of my way to try to control somebody because they're triggering me. That's not how it works. It's something that I have to deal with myself.
Yeah.
So I just kind of, this next part, I want to go down the validation portion.
Let's go talk about some validation.
So a lot of, we need validation to heal, and especially people who have had trauma. Some may say you don't need validation, or validation comes from within. There's a lot of programs that will say that too, that you have to like just love yourself so much that you don't need validation from others. But humans need, it's a human need. We need to feel, like we belong and that we're accepted. It shows that the other person, like that we're important. Like it shows that they care if somebody's validating you. Your child, your significant other, spouse, parent, a friend, validation communicates that they are important and that they care about your thoughts and feelings and experiences. And self-validation is important as well. Learning how to recognize our emotions with zero judgment and saying, okay, I'm angry, sit with it, and then acknowledge why at a different time. You don't have to acknowledge why you're angry in the moment.
So you're talking about like when this is how self-validation works.
This is self-validation. Yeah. And there's no need to try and change our emotions because, like I said earlier, the world will tell you that you should always be happy or never angry. So you telling me all the time, like you're making a big deal out of this. No, there is something going on and I need to sit in these emotions. And if you don't agree with me, that's okay. You don't tell me you don't agree with me. You just say, hey, look, I get it. It's okay to be angry. You were fixing a light yesterday.
Oh my God, that stupid light.
Yes, you were fixing a bunch of lights. You were installing a bunch of lights. And you were getting really angry with it.
That third one.
Yeah, the last one. And I didn't get angry with you.
No.
I was just like, it's all right. I kind of made you giggle with it. I was just laughing with you. Like, it's all right. Yeah, it fucking sucks. Stupid light. It sucks. And I think it was easy for you to get through it instead of me saying, why do you have to be so freaking pissed off at the light? Why you need to change your attitude. Don't be angry. No, you're angry. It's okay to be angry. You need to sit in that anger and accept it. When others around us, especially those we love, are telling us not to be angry, it's going to make it worse.
Validation was so tough for me, and I don't understand why.
Because you thought it meant condoning. And you thought it meant agreeing. You thought it meant...
I don't know why. I do know why. But at the time, I didn't understand why. Like, if you would have explained this to me years ago, I would have sat there and thought, that sounds like some sissy crap. I don't really know what you're even getting at with this. Why do I need to validate a feeling you have if it's obviously incorrect?
Right.
This goes back to my youth.
Yeah.
My childhood.
Yeah.
And I know why I am the way I am. I know why I was operating that way, but I was operating with this cognitive distortion that it was all or nothing. That if someone was saying I'm upset about something that I had done or something that I experienced, it's like they were telling me that either I had to fix it or that I had to tell them, like, I had to basically buy into their reality for what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
With healthy people, it's great. But if you're around someone who's sick,
Mm-hmm.
this can be bad.
Yes.
If you're validating someone's toxicity,
Yes.
I got experience with that.
Right.
And that's where I think the rub came. But
Yes.
it's not fair at all that that's how I treated everyone in my
Everybody,
life, especially you.
Right.
Because you had normal problems and normal emotions and normal feelings, and you're just,
Right.
you're a healthy person.
Right.
But here I am being told, hey, I had trouble with X, Y, or Z, or this person or this situation. And it's like, I see what you're saying, but I can't let things go there, because if we go there, then things are going to get, you know, out of hand quickly,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I was like, I can't let things get there. So we're just going to have to change your perception, which is really a form of gaslighting is all I'm really describing here.
Yeah, for sure.
But when we were in couples therapy, when I learned like truly what validation meant.
Yes.
And what I mean, like the skies parted and the sun shone through, and like it blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember the first times being conscious enough to catch myself in the moment and then just doing it. And the reaction you get back is like, holy crap, it's that easy?
Yeah.
Empathize,
Mm-hmm.
talk.
Yeah.
That's it. Let them know it's okay.
Right.
That's it. But the empathy piece, I think, is where I struggled.
Yeah.
Cause
And I always knew
I'm a
why.
psychopath,
I
yeah.
always knew why. But I was like, I'm not like that, you know? Like I was different. I'm your partner, your wife.
The
You
only
don't
reason-
have to correct that.
Only reason I speak up at all here is because I think that a lot of listeners are probably dealing with someone like you're describing, which was me at one time.
Yes.
So sort of letting them in on like what's the texture of someone's mind in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from one of two places. It comes from a place where they've dealt with someone who's very toxic and has insisted upon a reality that was not the case
Yeah.
for their own benefit,
Mm-hmm.
or they're dealing with someone who's incredibly abusive, you know, and they're using it to an end to control,
Yeah.
which is possible too.
Right.
Not allowing you to have your own perspectives or opinions about anything because it interferes with my control and what I need in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's generally where it comes from. And I think, honestly, I had a mixture of the two.
Yeah.
At times.
Yeah. I think so too.
It wasn't always just one or the other. I'm not completely innocent here.
Right. Right.
But validation was huge for our marriage.
Yes, it was. It was.
And your recovery.
But we both had to be healthy, you know, in that moment to be able to get to that point. But you didn't start the validation process until probably 8 years after sobriety.
Yeah, it was long after.
Yeah. So that's why we're very open about the timeline of how serious these situations are, because just because you take away the substance, the behaviors don't change immediately.
I think it's been that long.
Since what?
We first went to counseling.
Oh, man.
That was 2020?
I don't know. That was 4 years ago. So yeah.
About 4 years. So it took roughly six to 8 to get into that place where things are.
It was about 8 years because you started really validating within the last 2 years.
So, but within a relationship for someone they're looking out and saying, all right, I need to be what they are today.
Mm-hmm.
6 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
Roughly.
And that's only
if we're the average of that, I don't know.
Right. And that's only if they're working on something, both
Yeah.
sides, you know, and working on communication. Because that was like one of the hardest parts of our marriage, I think, was the whole gaslight. It was the behaviors. It was not the substances. It was the fact that you didn't respect my opinions, or you would try to gaslight me, and then you didn't invalidate me. And that happened well after the substance was removed.
Yeah. Lundy Bancroft wrote a book called Why Does He Do That?
Yes.
It changed my life.
Yeah.
Changed my life completely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was incredible. But he defines abuse as someone that chronically mistreats or devalues their partner. A lot of people have really hard time with the word abuse or
Yes.
calling their partner abusive or saying that. And you brought up a really good point earlier, which I want you to share for everyone here. But
Okay.
that's what abuse is. If we're going to define abuse as that and take away all the definitions in your own mind about what abuse is or what an abusive person is,
Yeah.
it's someone that chronically devalues or mistreats. So it's a rather generic term. It's sort of broad.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of things can fit into this bucket of abuse. It's not just the person that comes home and screams in your face. It's not just the person that calls you names. It's not just the person that hits. It's not just that.
Right.
But another thing that we talked about this on the way home today, actually, was the sense of feeling like a victim and not wanting to to consider yourself one.
Mm-hmm.
But you are. And are you comfortable with it today?
I'm comfortable with saying it, but I don't think I've had that victim mentality. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Like, it's okay that I say that, but I don't feel like I gave into that mentality. But it is very hard. It is hard. It's a hard thing to say.
I think that this has been a tough episode in the making for you too, because when we started TUFO, you never wanted to, you didn't want to talk bad about me, and you didn't want to make me out to be a villain.
Right.
But
I had
I
a
was,
problem with that.
yeah, and which is why it was hard for you to really speak up about some of this stuff to once again protect me. But like we had long discussions about this. I was like, but I was all these things.
Yes.
I did all these things.
Yes. You were accepting of it very much. More than I was.
These are your experiences. I just, even live right here, I just, like, this is the stuff that I think people want to hear about more than anything.
What?
This, about how someone survives this and how did they, in their own mind, come to terms with it?
Yeah.
Accept that these things happened and label me as an abuser that I am.
Mm-hmm.
I was.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it takes a long time for me to even rewire my brain back to where I was with my core values, back to the person that I was before my core values, because with you, I shifted my personality a little bit, and I took on some behaviors that were, you know, not within my values. And now that you're telling me that I was right for a long time before that is still a shock to my brain. I'm having to rewire it to say, like, crap, I went through so many years of feeling like the wrong person, and then now I'm feeling like the right person, but it still takes some time to catch up.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there were a lot of things that happened that I was so agreeable with during active addiction. And I had to shift it back, and I'm like, crap. So it's like 3 different lives, like we've said before multiple times, but I've had to rewire my brain.
It's said, and I don't remember who said it, but it's said that identity lags reality by 1 to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the person, what's happening in your life today, you won't feel like it's real for 1 to 2 years. You won't feel like that person for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Kind of wild to think about.
It's very
especially
wild.
In the context of this type of relationship,
right?
And the recovery and
right.
the journey and all the work you think
right.
you're doing. Like, there will be times where you don't feel like you've gotten anywhere, but reality is that you have. You just don't feel that way yet, and it will take some time for that to catch up.
Yep.
Identity lags reality by 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, and that's a long time.
It's a freaking long time.
Yeah.
You kidding me?
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm so big on talking about the timelines of these things. Like it's not a quick fix.
No.
And me finding my self-esteem was not a quick fix either.
No.
You know, it took a long time. It was a long process.
I don't remember. Are you going to get into some of the things you did in the early days? Like when it was sort of like pulling teeth with yourself and like getting up and working out?
Yes, I am going to kind of touch on that. We can touch on that right now because we talked about it in the gentle self-care episode on how it was like pulling teeth, but I had to choose to do hard things every day. Even if it didn't seem hard to others, it was really hard for me. But then eventually a couple years down, I was stronger. So I was able to do even more hard things. But I really want our listeners to understand that they have choices and they do have a fire and they can do hard things. They can build up their self-esteem. They don't have to be stuck in this. If they are stuck in the victim mentality, they don't need to be stuck there. I mean, you're so much stronger than you think. That was like the biggest takeaway I got from a therapy session was that you were stronger than you think. And it's true. You just have to listen to your gut and you can get there. You can make changes, but you have to do hard things every day.
In order to do that, do you think validation has to come first?
Yes.
You do? I
do.
So if you're in a relationship with someone who is abusive, and in the context or in the definition of Bancroft that we just stated,
yes,
chronically values or mistreats you. If you're in an abusive relationship, who can you seek validation from?
That's a great question. Either therapy or from even people who are going through the same thing, like our support group. somebody who's been there, somebody who knows and understands what you really are dealing with. Now, if you do therapy, I always suggest a trauma specialist. And even in our course is extremely validating. We've had a lot of people who have gone through it saying that you were just saying my life, like this is my life. And they just feel welcome and they're like, I'm not crazy. So you have to get it from an outside source if you're not going to get it from your partner.
Yeah. So if you're counting on someone who's stuck in an addiction, or maybe they're sober, but they're really not seeking emotional sobriety and doing the work that is necessary to achieve that, you're not going to get validation. Therefore, you're not going to get the growth. Therefore, you're not going to get this empowerment.
Right.
You're not going to get, it's like we've said before, like you can't really heal in the same environment you were sick in.
Yeah.
And social learning theory is the basis of that quote. It's also the basis of the course. And it's true that if you were in an environment you're sick, let's say there's black mold in your home, are you going to recover from your cough with it going on? No. It has to be basically torn down and rebuilt in certain rooms and whatnot.
No, but you can start, and that's by starting to build your self-esteem. That is by educating yourself, getting validation from external sources, things like that.
So listening to this podcast, hopping in the community.
Yes. Reading books on trauma, books on abuse, books on self-care, like self-help. I actually have a list of these.
And if you ever need validation, that's what the community is for.
Yes, and we do validation calls. Like you can set up a call with me and we will chat on this, and I will, help you take the first steps of empowering yourself. Yeah. And it does the validation. It's important. I think it's bullshit if somebody is out there saying that you don't need validation to move on. You do need validation to build up your self-esteem. Because if there's trauma involved.
Yeah, because the opposite side of this camp looks like sort of like the David Goggins of the world, where you've got someone saying like, I don't care. I have calloused my mind. I don't care what anyone thinks about me.
Goggins got validation too, though.
He did. That's the thing. Is like I think people think in those extremes, but like in his new book, he even talks about going back and seeing his father, the person that abused him, and his mother did terrible things to him. Yeah, he needed to see that he's not so scary after all. It's a weak little man. He's destroyed and decrepit, and he felt sorry for him. Yeah, that was valid. That was his form of validation. Right. Okay, I don't need to fear this person anymore. Yeah, sort of thing, Right. But it is incredibly important.
It's human. You have to have somebody out there who's got your back.
Yeah, and if you ever need to feel validated, like go to one of our videos that's got a bunch of views and scroll through the comments for a moment, and you're going to see hundreds or thousands of people saying, "Yes, that was my life. This happened to me too. Right. This is my life."
Now,
you're not alone.
Yeah, and if you're just seeking validation, then that's not going to be. Like, that's not just the healing journey. That's just the very first part of it, is just having that validation. And then you're able to make decisions that do align with your values once you have been validated.
Yeah. Like the amends process of AA, I don't think they knew it at the time, but it was supposed to be a validation process for other people. That's what we're doing. You make a list of people that you've harmed, and then you become willing to make amends, and then you make amends.
And that's what I was going to say too, is that addicts and alcoholics get validation all the damn time when they go and get treatment.
That's what treatment is.
That's what it is. They're telling you, I understand, I'm here for you, but we're supposed to not have validation. Like, it's bullshit. That's all.
Yeah. And there's also an addict, especially one who's still in it or early on, will tell you that their journey is way harder than yours. And that gets under my skin. Yeah. Big time. I've seen both sides of this deal, man.
Yes.
You
just made a high school face, and that was hilarious.
It's a childish face, but yeah, like, no, we're not even going to say that, but you're right. Rehab is basically them telling you, like, it's okay. I understand why you felt the way you did. I understand why you did the things you did. And I just want to let you know it's okay. Yes. But it's damaging for you. We've got to find a better way. Right. Even when you flip out in there over, like, people, you want to see what grown people acting like children looks like. Hop into a treatment center on any given night. I had a friend, good friend, who actually died recently, but died completely sober, unrelated to alcoholism. But in treatment, he could not stand the fact that he was on someone else's schedule and someone else's time, and that he had to listen to someone else tell him what to do at 40 something years old.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. It drove him absolutely crazy. And he would move the furniture around when people weren't looking, just to like get back at people and like sort of exert his will on the world to feel like he had still some kind of power. They ended up putting a sign around this bastard's neck that said he was on talking timeout and he wasn't allowed to talk for like 48 hours. He fought them tooth and nail. And it took a long time for this guy to come to terms with, okay, I'm not in control. I don't have control over this. I got to let some of this stuff go. But while he was in there, they were validating him.
Yeah.
They weren't like shaming him or telling him he was a horrible person or shit human.
Right.
You know?
But that's the first step, and it's a very small step. Like, it's only like 5% of the issue. Because during my building up my self-esteem, I learned how to have two thoughts at once, right? I learned that there is a gray area, and that's where I'm going to kind of speak on the other side of this, where you find your own personal self-worth. And it is from a quote from Sirut Chawla. Is that how you say her name?
I believe so. Sirut Chawla. She is actually, I would say she's very divisive and unpopular in some circles.
Yes.
Because I think that if she does anything at all, she's very real and she doesn't sugarcoat a lot of stuff.
Yes. And she's direct. And I listened to a podcast today with her and Chris Williamson.
Yeah.
I'm really bad with names, so I just question you because you're the one who sends me shit to listen to, and I listen to it and then I forget their names. But I loved her. I thought that she was on point. I appreciated things that she said, but she had this quote about actual self-worth. So I'm going to read it real quick.
Yeah, what'd she say?
Actual self-worth is a hard one, and it's earned through surviving things and setting a challenge for yourself and actually accomplishing it. Keeping your word to yourself. Do you know how fucking difficult that is? How few people can do it? It's a constant battle, but don't ever stop trying. Keeping your word to yourself will change your relationship with your sense of self-worth. Develop competence in something. Have a purpose that makes you excited to be alive. It'll give you that grounded sense of self-assuredness and that changes how you feel in the world.
Oh man, that is so accurate.
And that's something that we have worked on. Like keeping a word to yourself and actually setting challenges for yourself and accomplishing it. That is going to build up your self-esteem. That's where the hard work comes in. That's where you start taking care of yourself. That's where you do things that are challenging because it will build you up.
Yeah, that she's so on point, and like on the surface level, it seems so simple, but it's not. Mm-hmm. It is not simple to keep your word to yourself. But you're right. That's where real empowerment comes from. Like Hormozy says, like self-confidence doesn't come from shouting affirmations in the mirror.
Right.
It comes from having a stack of undeniable proof that you are what you say you are.
Right.
And you get that stack of proof by doing the thing, by doing the hard things, by keeping those promises to yourself.
Yes.
And taking care of yourself, or putting in that extra effort, or burning the midnight oil, whatever it might be. This applies in business, this applies in life, this applies everywhere.
Yeah.
In recovery as well. Mm-hmm. I am what I say I am. I did this work, and I'm proud of myself for it.
Yes. And it comes from you. First, you have to find out what your values are. Again, like figure them out, which we have that in our course, the whole process of finding your values and where you stand there. And that'll help you take the next step of like doing what challenges you. Yeah. And what you need to do to keep your word.
We covered values as well. So if you're in a place where you just cannot get the course, we covered this in part 1, I think, of our boundary series. Yep. When it comes to values, because oftentimes, like what you're describing, I feel like a lot of time when we talk to people, and this is on us, we can be better teachers and better educators on this stuff, is that I feel like it's over people's heads because we see it from 30,000 feet and we assume that people understand, but a lot of times they don't even know what their values are. No. Like they don't even know what that means anymore because they've been in this relationship where they haven't been validated. They've lost themselves. They've lost themselves. They've been gaslit into oblivion. Yep. Not understanding who I am. What is my place in the world? Does anything I say matter? I am a piece of crap. I don't matter. Right. He's right about everything. Yeah. Like you can be convinced in that. Mm-hmm. If you're in it long enough and you have a small enough circle, they can get bad. And one day we'll get into the whole toxic family thing. Yeah. But if you got someone who's doing that and they got family that supports them and backs them up and you're close. Yeah. Jesus. That's
it's a whole different beast.
Whoa.
Yeah. So my values are accountability, authenticity, and honesty. So I don't surround myself with people who don't take accountability.
That is a fact.
It is a fact.
You want to be friends with Paige and you don't take accountability, you better keep walking.
Peace. I learned how not everyone is safe. I learned that not all people can communicate properly. I learned that we don't have to communicate with everyone the same. And that was really hard for me. because I thought that if I communicated with somebody on how I felt, you know, they would take into account how I felt and then we would make changes together. But that's not true with somebody who's not willing to hear you.
No, it's like that quote, someone can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves.
Right, which is what you did. You said that recently in
Yeah,
TikTok, right?
it's so true, man. Like
Yeah.
people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. So they cannot, if you're talking to someone like you're describing, Paige.
I was going to say somebody who has not dealt with their own trauma is typically who it is. If somebody has not dealt with their own trauma and they're pretty unstable, you're not going to get through to them. No matter how hard you try, no matter how healthy you are communicating with them, it just doesn't work.
No.
And then you can get sucked back in so much easier.
Yep.
And I learned that as well. It's like when we discuss the jade, like don't justify, argue, defend, or explain. We say that because you can't get through to somebody who isn't willing to meet you in the middle. And sometimes it hurts us more because we may be easily manipulated by giving them more chances.
Yeah, like I think there's power in jade at times, especially if it's a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a healthy relationship, you won't even have to do this really.
No.
But you will have disagreements with people. But when it comes to the sick mind and an unhealthy person, whether it be someone who has narcissistic traits or someone with addictive traits or both, you is the biggest waste of energy in the world to try and explain your perspective.
Yep. But this is why I believe that you do have to be careful with the type of professionals that you seek, because a lot of them may not be well versed in how to communicate with those who are manipulative. Because they may say, oh, well, you need to speak up for yourself, or you might need to go at them in a different way, communicate in this way. But what I learned is that there was nothing I could say. Speaking up was just going to make it worse for me.
Yeah.
So I would just write things out or type them out and keep them for myself, and then go back to it and remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing.
You just reminded me of something, and just a word of caution to anyone who is on a journey with us right now is that your growth is going to be incredibly intimidating to your partner.
Yes.
They are not going to like this.
Nope.
They are not going to like you flipping status quo on its head.
Nope.
They are not going to like the fact that you are growing and changing and you are starting to figure things out.
Yep.
They're not going to like that you're questioning things,
Mm-hmm.
that you're reading certain things.
Mm-hmm.
These are all red flags, by the way, but they are not going to like it. Just heads up.
Right. And that means you need to keep doing it.
It is a threat.
It's a threat to them.
To this perfectly arranged reality that I've created here.
Yeah.
And when you start to act outside of the mode of your character, like an actor breaking script and improving, it's like, oh, whoa, no, wait. We got to go back to where I'm comfortable, back in this reality that was so easy for me, where I could keep you in this little cage and everything was fine.
Yes.
It's going to throw things off.
Right. And it's going to
be ready for that.
Yeah. And that's why it's got to take time for you to build up your self-esteem to be okay with doing these things, because it's going to happen and it's going to suck and they're going to come back at you, but you have to stand your ground. Continue to stand your ground. And Matt was reading over my notes earlier, and I said this one sentence, and he's like, "This doesn't make sense to me." So I'm gonna say it, and some people might have seen this on Instagram.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
So I learned that we cannot change people, but we can change people.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
So speaking up doesn't mean that I can, change somebody, but I can change the people around me. That means that I can make decisions to remove myself from situations that no longer serve me.
Man, that's like the bitch of it all right there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm not degrading anyone by any means. If anyone's ever sent us a message that's sort of like this, but people will say, my relationship is a total mess, and they'll go on to give details about why.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, I still want it though. Mm-hmm. It's like, you just answered your question, and you just basically stated that you can't change people, but you can change people. Mm-hmm. As long as you're in a relationship with someone who's like that and they're unwilling to change, nothing is going to change. And I guarantee that.
You have to change.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but you know what? It can be
or maybe fortunately.
I was going to say, no, not unfortunately, man. This is so empowering. This situation, when you learn and you educate yourself on this and you're actually figuring out, you're waking up. you're waking the fuck up. That is beautiful. It is scary. I know that. I know it's hard to look at reality, but when you begin to do it, it is going to be like a little bit of a weight is lifting off your shoulders, because you are realizing that you do have choices. You do have decisions in your life.
Yeah.
You are not stuck in what you're in. You have decisions and you can make them.
Yeah. And like, what's the thing that triggers this decision to change people? You're going to have to answer that question for yourself. Like, that's really a very personal choice, because for us, there were times where I think if I met us 12 years ago, like, you need to get away from that guy. He's a mess.
Oh yeah.
He's a disaster.
Yeah.
Maybe there's no chance he ever figures it out.
Right.
We figured it out. But I think the metric you ought to use for, is this worth investing in? Should I hold out hope? Is what is this person's capacity for change? Do they have the ability to be open-minded about anything at all?
Right.
And then the more quantifiable metric is, are they doing the work?
Yeah.
Are they actually doing any work? Are they going to therapy? Are they going to some sort of program? Are they investing in making themselves better?
Yeah.
And if they're not, and they have no interest, I think you have your answer.
Right.
It's going to, you're going to keep getting the same thing you always got if nothing changes.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing that a lot of people question. Like, everybody has their shit. You know, everyone makes mistakes.
Sure.
Right? Like, we all make mistakes. Even within our recovery journey, we have made mistakes.
I hold the title for most mistakes made, by the way.
But here's my thing. If someone does it more than 3 times, it is typically abuse in a pattern.
Okay. Yeah. If we're talking about,
when it comes to
identifying patterns.
When it comes to identifying patterns, if they're doing it more than 3 times, like if it's continuously, like if it's happening over and over where you're not seeing a change, that's you need to recognize that. So I like the 3 strikes you're out rule.
Baseball.
You know, you communicate your needs, your boundaries, and if they're not shifting or changing at all, you have to make a decision to protect your peace. That's hard for a lot of people to deal with, because they can think, oh, they yelled at me 3 times, you know, I need to go. It's not really just yelling. It's deeper than that. But you'll know, like, 3 strikes, like, why am I still doing this? Why are we still doing this?
Yeah. Like,
you've made mistakes, obviously, but you were able to correct them after a certain amount of time.
I got better at listening when I got sober, but it didn't fix everything. But I was in active addiction. This was not possible. There's no way in hell I could have ever taken anything you ever said and did something constructive with it. Yeah. Once I was sober, it was still damn near impossible. It was only after a considerable amount of time and investing in my own recovery was I able to begin to understand the words that were coming out of your mouth. Yeah.
Well, like, here's an example about the 3 strikes. So I decided that you and I needed to go to therapy together because you were still, you know, gaslighting me. Yeah. And there were still like some crazy throwing things, outbursts, getting really mad. Yeah. And I was having to make changes that you didn't like because it was going to affect you, like we talked about earlier. But I didn't care, and I had to protect myself. So when I first mentioned therapy, you said, hell no. And that was a red flag. So that was strike 1. A few months later, we decided to finally get help. Now, if I were to come to you a few months later and say something, and you'd say, no, I don't want to go to therapy. All right, strike 2. All right. Yeah. All right. Let's give it a little bit more time. I planted the seed twice at this point. I planted the seed. Let's give it a little bit more time. Then I say it again, and you say no. I'm sorry, but I need to reevaluate this whole relationship at this point if you're not ready to push forward and meet me in the middle here.
I agree with that.
Do you think that's solid?
I do.
Like, I think it is. I think it's solid. How many chances are you willing to give somebody? If you keep giving them chances over and over and over and over again, you're not going to recognize the cycle, and nothing is going to change.
Yeah, so like, what's the sweet spot for chances? Like, I think we can all agree that 1. I don't know. If you're a 1 chance kind of person, then more power to you. But I think it's a little rough. Yeah. A little rigid. Yeah. Like 10's too many. 3 to 5. For you, 3. 3's the magic number. It's like 3. That's all. That's what you get. You
3.
get 3.
You get 3 fucking chances. You know, I think this could go with relapses as well.
When it came to our therapy, like our couples counseling. Yeah. Were we in there for like a real issue between us in the marriage? Or no. It was an issue. It was an issue that served as it was more of a symbol of other issues.
Yes.
It was like you could say it was this thing.
Yes.
But really, like the patterns within that thing showed up everywhere. So it was a bigger problem.
For you, it was the one problem. For me, I knew it was a communication issue. I knew it was a marriage issue.
Yeah.
But you didn't want to call it a marriage issue. We're kind of processing this right now. This is interesting.
This is weird.
This is weird mess. Like, what the hell are we doing here? So you thought it was a marriage issue, and that was a threat to you because you thought that we had such a beautiful marriage.
Yeah.
Like, we've been together for so long. Everything was great. Everything. And I was like, this is a marriage issue. And I knew it was a marriage issue because of how my gut was feeling and how I was working on things. And I needed you to come meet me in the middle and learn how to communicate better. And you really just wanted to fix one problem.
Yeah.
But it was a lot deeper than that.
Yeah. And I can honestly say, like, thinking back, like, we had unturned so many stones in our marriage and problems leading up to that, that we had done with each other. Like, in my own recovery, coming to understand my wrongs and my own behavioral patterns that I needed to change. But this was one, man, like, I think that therapy was the only way I was ever going to see it and really get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Because it was so deeply rooted.
Yes.
So deeply rooted.
Right.
Like, and I could look back, and I think most people could look back even and then and say, well, everything seemed fine. And on the surface, it was. Like, we were fine 99% of the time?
Yeah.
But that 1% that was left was bad.
Yes, it was very deep.
Huge. So maybe it wasn't 1% actually.
Right.
It might have been like 10 or 20.
To you it was because you had the cognitive distortion of minimizing certain things.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at it for reality.
Mm-hmm.
But you also had a cognitive distortion of catastrophizing things.
Very much so.
That were minor. And we've discussed this on our podcast a lot about how, like, you would get really upset over stupid things, but then you would get not upset over big things.
Yeah.
And that's actually cognitive distortion.
I got them working in every direction.
Yes, you do. We all do. But I recognize this, and I learned this all in therapy and building up my self-esteem and how my distortions were actually holding me back. And we talk about distortions in our course too. So that's kind of a cool thing. But I do now I'm able to understand why you made things a big deal that were small.
I was operating with this broken brain.
It's not broken.
No, it's broken. It wasn't just like low on batteries. This thing needed a replacement.
No, it's just like, it's almost like denial too. It's almost like living in denial because you're not seeing the reality for what it is, and you didn't take my perspective into consideration.
Man, and I think the conflict of someone in recovery, and I'm just going to speak for myself here because this is what I went through, but I am an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. Like, often alcoholics are referred to as that. I don't know where that was originally written. I don't know if that's from like a program or what, but I've heard it a lot. I heard it when I first got sober. Like, alcoholics are an egomaniac with an inferiority complex.
Yeah.
And when you make progress, when you start to build yourself up, when you are managing to stay sober for a period of time, even though you are actively working on keeping your ego in check, I guess you can kind of evolve into this, I don't know what you'd call it, like a character trait where you feel like you know what you're talking about, like overconfidence, I would say.
Yes.
Maybe, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And like, you can, and people, if you've ever been with someone who's in recovery, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
They'll come home and start telling you all of, like, you would think they spent 8 years at Harvard, getting a psychology degree and a PhD and a bunch of other stuff. But I think you can get really cocky and really arrogant with just a little bit of information when you start to see changes in progress.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways, I very much devalued your experiences and what I thought that you knew.
Yes.
Because I thought I had accomplished so much.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think I see that a lot, man. When I work with couples,
good.
I see that with a lot of couples that go through that, where they're like, you get someone who weaponizes AA or therapy or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, especially with someone who's an addict,
Yeah.
like, that can be really dangerous because they will use it against you.
Oh yeah.
They'll use it against you.
I mean, you would do that with me, but I questioned it all the time.
Every so often, I'd be correct. I will say that. Every so often, once in a blue moon.
You would be.
Because no one's perfect.
I learned.
No one's perfect. We both learned so much from each other.
I did learn a lot in your recovery and things that you brought home. I really and truly did, like a lot. It was just those little things that I'm like,
it wasn't a
let's
little
question
thing. There
this.
was a major issue when it came to that. When it came to this acceptance idea that we can tolerate bad behavior.
Right.
Like I've always been pretty good at carrying two thoughts at the same time.
Yes.
Two opposing thoughts at the
Beautiful.
same time. But the one I think that was the most difficult for me, and this is for other people in my life. This is not for you, just for the listeners. This is not for Paige. It's apology accepted, access denied was a really tough one, man. That's and that's also what a lot of spouses have to face. It's like apology accepted, access denied. Like I thank you for the words you just said, but I know based on your patterns that you don't really know what that means. You're just saying what you think I want to hear at this moment.
Right.
And I know based on your patterns what you're going to do next week,
yes.
2 months from now, 3 months from now. So apology accepted, access denied.
Right.
Man, that's tough. Little hint is what we were going through. See if someone can figure that one out.
All right. Well, I'm gonna
I'll never tell.
I'm gonna shift this a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm a very tough love kind of gal.
She is.
Would you say that?
She is.
I'm a tough love kind of gal, and I'm not like a mean tough love kind of gal. Like I'm really good with empathizing with people.
You are the most empathetic person I've ever met.
Right. And like I meet people where they're at, but I also want them to know that nothing changes if nothing changes. That means doing hard shit, working on shifting your mindset, not being super gentle with yourself. So here's a story about like my weight and stuff. So I used to allow my weight to fluctuate a lot because social media told me being unhealthy is okay, right?
Yeah.
Social media tells me that it's okay to be unhealthy. And all this did was reinforce my bad habits, which are unhealthy.
This is the validation thing that I was talking about, like where it can get backwards.
Oh, I agree. You know
what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
So
this isn't validation. That's condoning.
That's the difference.
That's difference. Yeah, that's the difference. And I would eat snacks because I was having a rough day. It was like a quick fix to alleviate the pain, and I sucked it up and I said, no more. I want to be healthy. I don't want to do this anymore. I stopped looking at social media and saying, it reinforcing all of my bad habits. And it's not about the way I looked. It was because of the way I felt. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to not just look okay in the mirror. I wanted to feel okay too. And I know that it's just like the mommy wine movement culture. Yeah, it's the same thing. That's another way of social media telling you it's okay to be unhealthy. You don't have to cope with this shit all the time. Y'all, life is hard. Life is fucking hard. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to be difficult. And that's where the self-esteem comes in, to where you challenge yourself to do the hard shit.
Yeah.
Do it. You can. I used to be just like everybody who listens. And I know a lot of you aren't where I'm at, but I've been where you are. And I'm hope that you can become who you truly want to be in this life. And I'm hope that you can build up that self-esteem to make life-changing decisions. And I'm hope that you can have a voice again, because I've been there and I know how you feel, but I also know that you can get the fuck out of it and you can change who you are, and you have the strength to do it, but you have to make decisions to do it. You have to.
It's so tough, man.
It's extremely tough. It was not easy finding my self-esteem again, but it was always there. Like the fire within me was always there, but I tried so hard.
Oh yeah, it never left. I can't confirm.
Kiss my ass. But I tried. But I did try hard.
It would come out every once in a while. Hey.
Right. But there were times that I would try to accommodate, others, and then I would forget what I stood for.
Yeah.
And it's time for you to find yourself again, man. It fucking hurts and it's hard.
Something that you talked about, and I love this thought. It's about reframing hard.
Uh-huh.
Like, when you had kids, did you think it was going to be easy? Like a show of hands. No one raises their hand. No one does. So doesn't mean you can't say it sucks at times, but this is what hard feels like. Mm-hmm. Whenever you're up at 2 a.m. and you haven't slept in days and days and days, like it's hard. Yes. Like I got through some of the worst times in my life by just reframing hard.
Yeah.
Like, especially when it came to my professional life and all the drama that goes on there.
Yeah.
Like, there were days where it's like, well, this is hard. I didn't think it'd be easy. It's going to be hard. And I reframed it as going into it, knowing it was going to be tough. And then it was still difficult, but I didn't feel like the poor me's that came with it. I'm real bad about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I don't deserve this right now. This is too much right now. That disappeared. Like those little voices disappeared.
Yeah.
Which drive me crazy.
Right.
Just reframed hard. It was still hard, but I accepted it much easier.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Reframe hard.
Yes.
It's going to be hard. Okay. Let's accept that.
It's not going to be easy.
So when it gets hard, let's remember we signed up for hard. This is hard. I can do hard.
Yeah. And you're going to question a lot of this stuff that happens within this process. You're going to question a lot of the things that you do. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel like, oh, am I doing something wrong? And like Matt said earlier, the more educated you become, the more it's going to throw people in your life through a loop. Because for them, it would be easier if we did just stay in our lane, which we know there's a lot of programs.
For them, it would. You're damn right.
Yeah, it tells a lot of programs will tell you to stay in your lane and allow your partner to do whatever you want. And I'm just going to say F that.
F that.
We have choices. Like, we know we can't change them, but we can change us. And staying in our lane, there is a place for that. Like, you've told me this before, like staying in your lane and whatnot. But it has gone too far. It's gone too far. You are with somebody who, if you stay in your lane, they're getting all up in your shit. They're coming all over in your lane.
Yep.
So you F that.
The people that are going to have the biggest problem with the new you are going to be those that benefited the most from having you as this frail person who didn't speak up.
Yes.
And
that right there.
There will be people, like even your friends, that say you've changed.
Uh-huh.
And you should say, I should hope so.
Say thank you.
Thank God.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a compliment.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
When
that.
somebody tells you you've changed, that means that you've grown and that you have become a different person. And that is a freaking amazing thing to have.
Yeah, and we're not talking about the rock star that goes viral and suddenly they're too good for their old friends. We're talking about someone who's growing, really doing this hard, challenging work to reform their identity.
Yep.
This is a compliment if someone says you've changed. But the people that say something in a negative way are going to be the people that liked you in that little box they had you in.
Yeah.
They loved you down there. You were controllable there.
Yep.
We're not trying to create controllable people here.
No.
That's not what TUFO seeks to do.
No.
We're trying to create empowered people that can make decisions for themselves.
Right. So the types of I want to talk about the types of books that I've read, like within my self-esteem building. Because we've been very open about this, about how it wasn't just codependency stuff. I didn't go down that route. I went down a different route. And read books on abuse, narcissism, trauma, boundaries, spirituality. Spirituality was a big piece for me too. I did find spirituality within my recovery. And that is just, having the universe and having a higher power and becoming present. That really helped me let go of some control too.
Yeah.
So that is a big piece of my recovery and building up my self-esteem, knowing that I'm not just alone. But I learned about narcissism being a spectrum and how I was too far on the lower end, which many of us are, which would be the empath, which is damaging as well. And then on the other side is where a lot of addicts stand. But now I'm in the middle, which is a healthy dose of narcissism. There is a healthy dose of narcissism that people don't realize, that it's okay to be okay with yourself. It's okay to be, it's not selfish. It's okay.
Different.
It's okay to just live your fucking life.
Yes. And
it's okay.
It's not much different than ego. Like, ego is a bad word. We think of it that way anyway, but there's a healthy level of ego.
Yeah.
Ego keeps you alive.
Yeah.
It protects you at times.
Yes.
It's a good thing to have.
Right.
But too much of it is a bad thing.
Yes.
Too little of it, also a bad thing.
Right.
So like on the narcissism scale, like a 10 would be like a serial killer, right? They believe that rules do not apply to them.
Yes.
Addicts are probably a 9. Like they're just a step below that.
Yes.
Like really abusive people and addicts are right below that.
And many of us are like, when I read the book, it was Rethinking Narcissism. When I read that, there was a scale and there were like questions that I had to answer. And I think I was a 3 at that point.
I bet you, what would you be now?
A 5 or 6,
right.
maybe even a little bit more. You are a 7, 8, I think.
Now?
Actually, you're probably more of a 6, 7 now. A couple of years ago, you were about a 7, 8. You're probably about a 6. You're healthy. You're a healthy narcissist.
Is that's considered healthy? 7 to 8.
And in between, yeah, it's like there's healthy narcissism.
6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
8's
That book is on our website if you're interested. All these books that I'm about to list out are on our website. But like we were just talking about Goggins.
Well, hang on. So
what?
none of these, you mentioned, like, none of these books are about codependency. None of these books are really about the recovery
addiction.
of a spouse or addiction or anything else.
No, this is about personal development.
Something that you said a million times before, and I hope that people remember this, is that you never focused on the substance.
No.
You focused on the behaviors.
Yes.
It's not about the substance.
No.
Let's remove the substance. Picture the substance doesn't exist. All right. Forget the fact that he acts nice whenever he's not drunk. He's probably just sucking up because he's hiding something more than anything. But anyway, let's forget all that.
Yeah.
How does the behavior feel?
Yeah. How is it affecting you? What are the behaviors?
That's what's important to focus on.
Right. That's why our course is based on, like narcissistic abuse.
Yeah. And I think
it's about people that have the traits and how it truly affects you. Your computer made some funky noise.
And I think, and I've seen this so many times, spouses can convince themselves, absolutely convince themselves that when he's sober, he's perfect.
Yes.
False.
It's not true.
It's just not true.
It's a false reality.
It's better, but it's not perfect.
But it's not perfect. And it's just keeping you stuck in that denial of not looking at the reality of the cycle.
Right.
And they want that to happen because then you're not able to get angry with them. But there are people who say, "Oh, my husband is great when he's sober." It's if you take away the substance, it's still going to take a long time for them to ever be that person when they're sober. Like you have to shift the behavior. It's about the abuse.
Some things get better immediately, and I think those are the things we focus on. But you're shorting yourself if you think that that's the best version of them. Like,
oh yeah.
Like I tell people this whenever, like, I go speak at treatment centers. I'm like, if I had to get you to write down on paper everything that you would want out of sobriety right now, and I showed it to you 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you would have shorted yourself on so much.
Yeah.
Like you're asking for the most basic things. Like, okay, so he gets up on time. He looks at me when I talk.
Those are basic
doesn't
things.
Scream. Like, guys, we're talking about having a serious conversation with somebody and being able to hold a conversation and have independent thought and new ideas and like a real intimate relationship. That should be the bar. The bar shouldn't be he didn't scream today. Like, he's not the perfect guy when he's sober.
Right.
He's not.
Right.
Like, when you take alcohol away from the alcoholic, all you're left with is the ick. Yeah. It's just the leftovers.
Yeah.
All that crap that we don't deal with comes out to play.
But you do have to take the substance away first.
You got to get that out of the way first.
So when people say,
it's futile.
I know people get confused when I say look at the behaviors and not the substance. I'm just trying to explain to you that
the recovery is not possible.
The recovery, that is not possible unless you take the substance away.
Right.
But you need to focus on how you're being treated and how it is not acceptable and what you do and do not tolerate within your relationship.
And when we say take the substance away, we're not referring to for the weekend.
No, we're saying
long-term sobriety. We're saying
long-term.
like a long bit of time.
Yeah.
Not just a couple of weeks or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So can I talk about books now?
My bad.
Do you have anything else? Why are you bad? And I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I interrupted you on the book.
No, it's okay.
You
had a really good point there. Thank you for bringing that up. We were just talking about that earlier. All right. So my whole journey was I liked to read David Goggins. I like his point of view on things. I think he's hardcore and I appreciate that. He's got a lot of tough love. I also liked the series of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which is Mark Manson. Gary John Bishop is great. He does books of Stop Doing That Shit.
Sounds like a country singer.
It does. He's from somewhere else. I don't remember where he's from. He's a great, get the audiobook. It's great. Obviously, I like all these bad words in my books because that's just how I am.
What is with
this? It's a thing. Why does he do that? We talked about that earlier. We have a lot of these books on our website that you can read so that you can kind of see what you're dealing with. I know a lot of people don't like to go down the abuse route, but go down the narcissistic route if you want to. I mean, it's very similar. And I even have a trauma book on there that can help you as well. And then, like I said earlier, like a lot of programs will tell you to focus on you. And I've said this before too, and I've been guilty of saying it, but there's something to it. But it's also important to understand who you married and how they communicate. If you're just focusing on you, you're not going to see the big picture. This is where our gray area comes in, where it's like some programs tell you to go one side and the other goes the other side. We're meeting in the middle where you need to look at both sides.
Right.
It is important to know what type of person you are dealing with so that you know how to communicate with them, which is not going to be very effective.
And you should also know what to expect, I think, based
Yes.
on what type of person this is.
Yes.
And how they communicate.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so like we can stay in our lane and still challenge our partners who want to be challenged.
Yeah.
Who are willing to be challenged. Like we still stay in our lane, but we're still married and we still have to challenge each other.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of times where you would kick your feet, but you look within yourself and you make changes to make sure you're the best man for yourself and for your family.
I have always loved being challenged.
Yeah.
I do. I love being challenged. And when you tell me I can't do something,
Yep.
like I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
When you tell me I ought to do something, I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
I love that.
I know
I love
you
that
do.
about you. I love that you were like, you've always been like my lighthouse. Like I've always been like just this rudderless ship kind of floating out in the middle of the ocean, no clue where to go. And then one day this lighthouse shows up and now I know where to go.
Yeah.
I know what to do now. Left to my own devices, I'll just float. Like I need direction. And I love you for that. You've always given me that. You've always given me those challenges.
But I also give you your autonomy as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's both.
It's all together. There's no all or nothing. It's not one way or the other.
Yeah.
You can do a lot together. You can focus on yourself, but also try to figure out what the hell's going on in your marriage.
Yeah.
It is important to know what the fuck is going on in your marriage. It's important to know what's going on with your finances. It's important to know if your partner is using or not. Like it's important information so that you can figure out what the hell you need to do in your life.
I can't stand these dudes like miss me with this whole rhetoric that she's controlling or nagging or she doesn't accept me for who I am because she challenged you to be better.
Yeah, yeah.
What she basically says that you're a finished, perfect product and you have no room to go.
Yeah.
You have no room to grow. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, goodbye.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Mm-hmm.
That is a red flag if there ever was one.
Yep. You know what I had a big problem with? Feeling like this, so I must be a weak person because you made that out to be for me. If I didn't tolerate somebody's behavior and you say, well, you just need to suck it up, you just need to deal with it or whatever, I felt like a weak person that I couldn't deal with it.
I think it's quite the opposite.
And
actually.
I think it's bullshit. I think that we don't have to put ourselves in situations that make us uncomfortable unless it's for personal development.
Yeah, because I think
there's a gray area.
There's
here.
a gray area there where also like there are going to be people you come across that maybe you don't have to be involved with a lot, but they rub you the wrong way.
Yeah.
And there's some level of that is
Yes.
okay, but there's another level of that that's also not okay.
Right.
Know the difference based on what your values are.
Yes.
Because you're not always going to be around people that you just love to be around.
Yeah.
But I do agree with the fact. I do agree with this. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That, yeah, you might feel weak for not being around those people. But I think if you look at it from the inverse, it's actually stronger because you understand what you are, who you are, what you'll tolerate, and what your values are better than anyone else. And you choose to be authentic. Yeah. This is who I am.
Yeah.
Think about old people for a moment. Old people don't care.
Yeah.
They will say whatever they want. They wear whatever they want.
Yep.
They wear Velcro shoes because they're comfortable.
Yes.
They wear a white shirt because they're easy to
Love
get.
it.
They don't care. At some point in your life, you just don't care anymore.
Right.
Why do we wait until we're 80 to figure that out?
I don't.
You didn't. You came out of the womb this way, I swear, man. And it's a beautiful thing. I admire it so much. You just don't tolerate BS. You're like, if I don't, you'll hang out with someone once or twice, and then you kind of get a read, and it's like, not my person. No offense, just not my kind of person.
No. And part of that is being highly sensitive because I do pick up on subtleties on people, and I know when somebody's being inauthentic, and I don't. It takes the energy out of me.
Yeah. So. There's an acronym for being highly sensitive. It's DOES, DOES, and it's depth of processing, overstimulation, empathy, and sensing. You have such a higher depth of processing where you can see fake people from a mile away. And it may sound very
It used to get on your damn nerves.
I mean, it may sound very like judgmental, but it's not, because the other side of that is empathy, where you have more empathy than any person I've ever known in my life.
Right.
So you can understand, but also choose not to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's an amazing trait.
Yeah, and it doesn't make me a narcissist either, which some people would question themselves as being narcissists because of that. But no, this is healthy for me, and I'm not hurting anybody.
According to TikTok, everyone's a narcissist.
We got to get through. We really do need to talk more about the narcissism, because that is something that we are very, we know about it. We're very well versed on that.
Yeah, as much as I'm recovering from being an alcoholic, I think that I was never diagnosed narcissist, but I can go through that. We can go through that together and be like, oh my God, you check every box just about. Dude.
Right. So we're going to have to wrap this up. I hope it's really hard. This episode was hard because it's like how I found myself again. As you can tell, there's so many damn layers that go along with this, that there isn't just like a simple answer. All I can do is tell you my experience and tell you how different TUFO is, and how, our course is different because we go the healing route with spouses, because that's what we need. We learn how to build the self-esteem, not bury our heads in the sand. We figure out what we tolerate. We find our worth. We understand it isn't weak to remove ourselves, and we learn to say no. And you start to figure out who you are when you do these things.
Yeah.
And it's not as simple as just saying, oh, I don't tolerate this shit, I'm out. You have to build your self-esteem up before you can make any decisions within your life. So that's what we're here for. Keep doing that. Like, keep listening. Keep educating yourself on all the things, not just from TUFO, but from everything that resonates with you. And go to therapy. Therapy's beautiful.
It really is. And we've made mention of it many times here before, but if you're in the state of Texas, Taylor Counseling Group is an excellent resource for that.
Yep.
Some people don't even know where to start, where to turn.
Mm-mm.
I think psychologytoday.com also has an amazing filter system to find a therapist.
Yes.
And you can filter by insurance, specialty, all kinds of stuff.
Be careful with addiction therapists.
Yes, be careful with addiction therapists. So
sometimes they're great. Sometimes it goes a different route that can...
I've seen two different types.
Yes.
I've seen bleeding hearts for addicts that don't quite understand the narcissistic behaviors, but they understand very much addiction and how to get past addiction.
Right, which is taking away the substance.
Oftentimes, that's a zero-sum game where they're telling the family member, you need to put your shit aside. He's got to get sober.
Yes.
So careful with that. Mm-hmm. I think someone in between the two understands a little bit of both and will call your addicted loved one on their BS.
Yes.
Is the best kind to find.
Right.
I don't think there's a filter for that, but you can always interview them.
Yeah. But somebody who also understands narcissism is going to be helpful, I think.
For sure.
Yeah, because they can tell you when you are being manipulated. A lot of the times we don't know that we're being manipulated in these relationships because, like we said in the last episode, you are so damn good at that game.
Yes.
So
yeah, we made that game.
Yeah,
we understand how to win at it.
I feel like I could have gone so much harder on this episode and felt like, I don't know if y'all really got the idea of who I am, but maybe in future episodes we can really start to peel this apart.
I'm just glad that I didn't talk 80% of this damn thing.
We had a conversation. It was nice.
Yeah, where you talked. That was the greatest thing ever. Y'all, I know you get sick of hearing from me. Well, I know it. Okay. I do. I get sick of hearing from me.
And I've explained this before, is that I'm having to go back in time with a lot of our podcasts and a lot of our episodes. And sometimes I dealt with all the trauma in my therapy. I went down the route. I did EMDR.
That sounds right.
There's an EDMR. Either way, I'm sorry, my brain is not working properly right now. But I did it to where I had to go through some of my traumatic events, and I've healed from that. But it still sometimes sucks having to go back to that time because I'm a completely different person these days. Like I'm pretty fulfilled. I let my feelings go through. I'm not questioning myself as much anymore. Like I'm a different person.
Yeah.
So I'd like to, come out of my shell even more.
Please do.
When we're discussing have to listen to me
these
things.
They're tired of it too.
I know.
I know.
I'm here for y'all.
Okay. Is that all we got?
I think so.
Awesome.
We got to go.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us here. Hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. I loved it. It was great. It was awesome. You did amazing. Until next time, I am Matt.
I'm Paige.
And we'll see you.
Bye.